Last year, the most successful plant promotion in Australian history took place. It was over the release of a brand new variety of rose called Flower Carpet Pink. Quite a stunning idea when you think of it, a rose that actually performed as a ground cover. Well, stage 2 of that promotion is now starting to occur, and that's the release of this particular one here. Predictably enough, it's Flower Carpet White, another ground covering plant, obviously also a rose, very, very vigorous, disease-free, and in fact we're looking at it where, well, roses really don't grow terribly well. We're in Brisbane, and if it's going to grow well here, it should grow well just about anywhere in Australia. The man behind Flower Carpet Roses in Australia is nurseryman Anthony Tesselar. You must be very pleased with the success of the promotion of the pink flower carpet.
Yes, Don, it's done very, very well. We've sold a lot, and the people who have got them are very, very happy with them.
Oh, that's good. Now, what about the white one? Is it much different?
Yes, it's different in a number of ways. It's more prolific in flowering. You get massive blooms, as you can see here now. Yeah. They flower very early. And also one thing very different, and I'll just show you, is the fragrance.
All right. Oh, it's nice, isn't it? Sort of an apple-y.
Yes. Perfume. Very, very nice.
Yeah, glorious. Obviously that there were a few teething problems with the pink one when it was first released.
Yes, the potting mix made the leaves go a bit yellow and dried up a little bit, and we've worked on that, and we believe now we've got a better potting mix.
Right.
But once you actually got those and put them in the ground, they just actually took off. It was only while they were in the pots.
So a bit of initial disappointment, but long-term satisfaction.
Oh, yes, yes.
And you've, I believe, developed a new type of fertiliser for them.
Yes, what we found out too is that a lot of the fertilisers, when the people were feeding them, they didn't get enough potash. So we've developed a fertiliser specifically for anything that flowers that has a high potash content.
So they pushed them all into growth with a nitrogen fertiliser but got no flowers.
That's right, and actually it made them very soft too, not hardened up. So the potash actually brings the flowers out and hardens up the plant.
That's fantastic, and I noticed the appropriate name on it too.
Yes, flower carpet plant food. Yes, it's by Osmocote, and it's a really good product.
Well, the next one I suppose to look at is maintenance.
Yes. Trimming these roses is so easy. Just hedge clippers.
You're not being very gentle.
No, they love it. Nice, see that? Nice and compact, beautiful.
What's the end result of that?
This, about 8 months later, you'll get something like this, Tom.
Oh, that's fantastic. When do you do that?
About the best time is over winter.
All right.
Winter, but it can be done any time of the year.
Now, one thing I've got to say, though, is obviously going to be weeding around. They are ground covers. They're very, very, very sharp little thorns.
Yes, they are. You don't want to get your fingers caught in them. That's why I like using the hedge clippers.
Right, but for weeding, you wear gloves?
Definitely. Always wear gloves. I think it's a good practice to wear gloves at any time in the garden because you never know what sort of nasty crawlies are in the garden.
All right. And what other maintenance? The fertiliser, the trimming, anything else?
Watering. People sometimes forget to water it. So all you have to do is give it a reasonable amount of water. They're not ferocious water hoggers, just a little bit of water, but some people tend to think, well, they're tough, to give them nothing.
Give them something. What about spraying? They're supposed to be fairly disease-resistant.
Yes, these are the most disease-resistant white rose you can buy in the world today, Don. Mine at home, I haven't sprayed at all. These haven't been sprayed at all. Invariably, if you feed them well and water them well, the plants are tough, and then they don't need spraying.
The one thing I've noticed about Flower Carpet White is that the petals drop pretty quickly.
Yes, in German it's actually called snowflake because they drop so quickly, but there's so many that keep on coming. But the nice thing is that they don't go brown. Most white roses get brown petals when it rains and things like this. This, you'll find that there's all white underneath.
Sort of like a Sasanqua camellia.
Yes, yes.
This is a comfrey bush, and in medieval times it was believed that if you sat on the comfrey bush for 1 hour every morning and every evening for 3 months, your virginity would be infallibly restored. Now, I can just imagine some poor medieval non-virgin saying, excuse me, Dad, I'm just off to sit on a comfrey bush for an hour. And of course, the neighbours would know exactly what she'd been up to. Anyway, luckily nowadays we've got some much more practical things you can do with your comfrey bush. I grow comfrey mostly to keep the cooch and kikuyu out of my garden. A really thick barrier is excellent for that. But I also make comfrey ointment, which is easy. Take your comfrey roots, wash them very well, stick them in the blender, and then stick in some sorbeline cream, about the same amount of sorbeline cream. Give a really, really good whiz till it's all mixed up. And this is what you end up with, comfrey ointment. Comfrey ointment, I think, is the best thing to put on battered hands like mine when you've done too much gardening. 1 glop, every evening, rub it on. Make sure you don't use it on broken skin, and for heaven's sake, don't eat it. But it is really, really effective.
It's only in recent years that Australians have started to recognise the value of many of our native grasslands. This is one. It's a very pretty area. Not only the native grasses, but things like the little bluebells, the Warland burges, and also the yellow Helichrysum apiculata, little yellow button plants. But there is a problem here. You'll notice a lot of the yellow scattered through the area. Now, that's not a native plant. It's called fireweed. Grows about 18 inches tall, has these yellow daisy-like flowers. And it is replacing many of the quite rare native plants that you've got in this area. But you might well say, so what? Who cares if a few weeds grow in the environment? Well, the problem is rather worse than that. 10 years ago, you didn't encounter it all that commonly at all. But recently, it has gone berserk. Let me show you something. See this? This is one of the seed heads. Look at that. The seeds just blow in the wind, so they can virtually blow all over Australia. The only thing that will limit them is perhaps the climatic areas that suit the plant. It comes from South Africa, so it's basically fairly well adapted to the Australian continent. It really does well in areas where the grazing practices aren't too good. In farmlands where they've overgrazed it, it just roars away and you get fields of yellow. Also grows pretty much as a weed in backyards, so it has the potential to spread everywhere. Over the last 10 years or so, it's spread extraordinarily throughout the east coast of Australia. And as I said, its potential, well, who knows? This poor animal here has been eating fireweed, and just look at it. Absolutely gaunt through here, no muscles. Bones of the pelvis standing out. This is a really sick animal. What happens when they eat fireweed is that it attacks the liver and the animal wastes away, and if it continues to eat the plant over a period, it may well die. Now, you might be saying, well, this is probably a gaunt type of cow anyway. Well, it really isn't. There's its mother over there, and as you can see, hiding behind it is a little white calf. So that mum is a little bit low in condition since she's feeding a calf, and look how muscly she is. Now, look back at the daughter who hasn't got a calf on board, and look how horrible she looks. Well, that's the bad news. The good news is that cattle, and for that matter horses, who are also poisoned by this thing, are reluctant to eat the plant. It contains alkaloids. They're the things that attack the liver, but that makes it taste awful. So usually they'll only eat fireweed, well, when most of the other pasture has been eaten out. Well, the next question is, how do you get rid of fireweed? Well, if it's in the garden or if you've got a small property, you might consider pulling it out. It pulls out very easily. And this is, having said that, is a tough one. And this is a particularly good way of getting rid of it if it hasn't set any seed, but this one has set a bit of seed, so you've got another year's crop coming up after that. You could spray fireweed with one of the sprays like bromoxynil, which is essentially sort of bindi eye killer. But you wouldn't do that if horses or cattle or whatever were actually grazing in the area, because that could poison them. But there are many other things you can do. Without doubt, the best way to get rid of this on a farm is by better pasture management practices. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means adding nitrogen, and an ideal way of doing that would be with chicken manure, and also adding phosphorus. If you do that and then add some better pasture grasses, in other words, pasture improvement, in time, this particular weed, fireweed, will go away. Well, poor old Dora here, we don't know how she'll go. She'll be looked after for the rest of her life, but as I said, she ain't going to have any more calves or anything like that. It's retirement for her, and hopefully she'll survive the fact that she ate quite a lot of fireweed. After the break, how to use tall, skinny plants.